Hi, this is Zach Pratt, and welcome to the second episode, and Happy New Year to all of you out there watching this program. And in this program, I try to explain some of the things that are going on related to public lands and volunteering and partnerships, and also recreation. Well, one of the things I want to share with you is some of my recreational antics, which is hunting and fishing and administering large amounts of federal land. So let's get started with some of these slides. So here I am with the first buck I got in 1964 over there on the left, and I would have been 12 years old. I'd been hunting all by myself, and I pulled up a map of the area where I got that first buck. Back then, before the new road went through, it was part of the Crampton farm, Cyrus Crampton, and then Mrs. Anderson lived next door. So going up on a farm, I was a long ways from the house or the barn lots of times. So heading around in the woods wasn't really that much of a problem for me. So the second buck I got the next year was further on, going back towards West Rutland, and that just happens to be in another wildlife management area. And then the third buck, which I got after walking all the way from over there in Castleton to over above where the pull-off is on Route 4, the new road, I got my third buck. So I've been hunting up in that area, and those hills are full of oaks. It was a great place to find deer, and a lot of them got smacked by cars when the new road first went through. So I also had an opportunity to go moose hunting. My friends had been after me for years to buy a moose lottery ticket, and I wouldn't do it. So finally they bugged me enough so that I bought a lottery ticket. And the first time I did, I won a lottery. So they were quite upset with me, but that's okay. That's the way things go. So there's the moose I got back in 2006. And then out in Nevada, where I was the outdoor recreation wilderness planner on about 8 million acres of Bureau of Land Management managed lands, I ended up getting this nice pronghorn out there. So I've been hunting in all sorts of places across the United States. And right here on Lake Champlain, Mike Fowler took me out in his pike hunter, famous boat. I'm sure you've seen him out there trolling lots of times, him and his family. And I happened to catch this pike one day out there in 2011 when I was fishing with him. So one of my reservoirs, this was a 800-acre surface area reservoir that I was responsible for, and it had a campground attached to it. I forget how many campsites it had, and a boat ramp. So what we're doing is the state is dropping off a whole bunch of trout. They come and stock it. And the lake had, or the reservoir had rainbow trout and German brown trout and largemouth bass. So it was really good fishing out there. The depth of it wasn't very deep. It was about 30 feet at the deepest spot. And then when the summer was there and the drought came along, it dropped even closer to the bottom. So you've probably heard about the recreation license fee. And that was on WCAX back in December. And I thought, how are they going to do a recreation license fee? And they're talking about $5 a day or $20 a year. So I thought about that, and I said, that doesn't seem right. Why should we have to, pay to go out on public land that as taxpayers we've already paid for? So I reached out to the commissioner of Fish and Wildlife, Batchelder, and asked him to come and join me back in December. He said he'd have to think about it. And then in January, I heard from him that he respectfully declined my invitation to come down here and explain what the new policy was going to be and the rules and things like that. So in the meantime, I went looking, kept searching to find more stuff. WCAX's Facebook, if you go there, there's about 3,000 comments on the recreation license fee. It's quite entertaining. You might, not to promote them, but you might want to go there and check that out. I found this online, the Vermont Conservation License Proposal, And I have the link down at the bottom of this, so you can go and find it there if you want. So I'm not sure who spoke, he spoke, or who was actually in the working group of the legislator on this, but this is the presentation he gave, and of course I wasn't there, like I said. So it starts out with talking about the department lands, the infrastructure, the 250 fishing areas, wildlife management areas, and all those different things that they have that they're responsible for. So all of a sudden, it went from a recreation license to a conservation license. And I think that that's just marketing. They're trying to change the name because people thought, well, why should I pay for recreation when, okay, well, maybe they'll pay for conservation. But I don't know. I have no idea what the answers are to these questions or if he even explained it during the presentation. So these areas they call are user-funded fishing areas. But the reason that I don't think that we should have to pay or people should have to pay is because some of it is paid for by federal taxes plus capital funds, which comes from the taxpayers to begin with to manage these areas. And the other thing it says down below, the public has become more diverse in their outdoor recreational activities, placing increased pressure on department lands and its infrastructure. So then I guess these are what they're talking about is diverse. Well, paddling, I think that means kayaking or rowboating or canoeing, sailing, bird watching, ice skating, more diverse. Those things have been going on since I was a kid and way before I was a kid. So I don't know what they're talking about. It's become more diverse, outdoor recreational activities. So here's another question. Why? He asked it, why? There's a financial burden on the department. Well, of course there's a tremendous, because they own so much land and they keep buying more land. So current funding doesn't meet public demand. When somebody says something like doesn't meet public's demand, I'd like to know what demand they're talking about. Well, I have no idea what that public demand is. And I was hoping that he'd come here and he could explain what the public demand was. And we know historically, because as you saw, I've been hunting and fishing in the state of Vermont for years. And they said that the hunters and fishers provide robust funding. I'm not sure what robust funding means either. So, these are kind of questions if I was a working group or a legislator, I would want him to be able to answer for me. And then the next thing, the historic part of it, the user pay public benefits model. Well, that model, if you do a Google search, is basically to pay for utilities and things like that. It's not to pay people that want to go out and watch birds or kayak or anything like that. And then he says we're not looking to make a profit off the license. Well, if you're not looking to make a profit, are you looking to make a loss? What are you trying to do? So he says, but asking those who benefit these areas to invest in that management administration, the long-term sustainability, well, that's what all of us are doing as taxpayers. We're investing in that when we bought the land and when we pay our taxes, because money comes out of the capital fund, the general fund for this. So once again, it'd be good to get some answers on that. So here's a diagram that they put up there that shows how the sales of hunting and fishing licenses the combo licenses have declined over the year from 1970 to, 2022. Yeah, and there has been a decline. But this graph really doesn't show you anything to compare it with. I mean, and I'll show some graphs later that I pulled together that we might want to think about. So this is what they say in the overview. This is another department license, which gives license holders permission to engage in non-hunting, fishing, or trapping activities on fish and wildlife lands. Well, what about other state lands? Can you use it on those, or why just fish and wildlife lands? Why not recreation lands? Why not all the lands that Vermont has paid for that are public? And requires the use of fishing access areas. Required for use of fishing access areas. Well, if I remember right, there's a statute in Vermont that says that people don't have to pay to go to those fishing access areas, that they're free for anybody to use. And I pulled up an article from a legislator, and I think he was on the board. His last name was Dean. I got the article online someplace, but he said that because it is paid for by the feds and Vermonters, that there shouldn't be any charge to be going out to one of these recreation access areas. So you're going to have to buy one of these licenses annually. So if you're not a hunter or somebody that's been fishing and going through their process of signing on to get a license, that would be a challenge right there. But it says cost would be similar to hunting, fishing, or trapping licenses, approximately $20 a year, $5 a day. Well, that is not what the price of hunting and fishing and trapping licenses are. So that's not an accurate comparison at all. That's apples and oranges type stuff. Unless they're going to say that you can get a hunting, fishing, and trapping license for approximately $20 a year or $5 a day. So will be required for all visitors to FAAs. So I thought, well, what the heck is a FAA? Well, that's Federal Aviation Administration. So basically that has to do with those drones that are flying around out there. That's all I could figure from that. And once again, it'd be good to have the commissioner here to explain that. So it says it targets those department lands for currently authorized activities, but do not currently pay for the department funding stream for land management. Once again, they're going to say, okay, you can fly your drone if you're under 18 years old without a permit. So it says a motorboat registration will act as a hunting, fishing, or trapping license. They will not be required to purchase a conservation license. So I didn't know that just by registering a motorboat, it acts as a hunting, fishing, or trapping license. So does that mean that a boat registration, you can now hunt and fish if you just have a motorboat registration? Here again, these are questions that I would think about if I was watching this presentation live from a commissioner and want to ask him questions about it. So this conservation proposal, and it's offset to declining revenues and combat future predicted losses by diversifying department's funding streams. Well, what is it that they're trying to conserve? They give no examples of what they're trying to conserve or what's been happening on the land that they want to conserve or why it's needed. I know he talks about there being about $280,000 is what they expect to bring in. Well, of their $31+ million budget, if you do the math on that, that's not even 1% of the department's budget. So how is that going to help? And then they don't talk about, well, how much is it going to cost to actually monitor this and pay for this? And you know, what are some of the fines going to be if you get caught without one of these stamps? I think it might be a nightmare myself. Anyways, it'd be good to have an answer on that too. And this won't replace the habitat stamp or compete with the non-game fund. In fact, it hopes that the habitat stamp contributions will grow with this new license. I don't know how one relates to the other. I've been buying the habitat stamp, and I've got like 5 of them posted to the back of my truck. I do that because now that I'm over the age where you can get a free hunting license, I figure, well, I'll pay the extra $15 and get myself a habitat stamp. So they want to start this in 2027 if it's approved. And, you know, I hope all of you out there watching could let your legislators or congresspeople or gun shops or wherever you go to get your fishing licenses, town clerk, know what you think about this. So one way or another, you really need to speak out about this. And they say it requires 6 months of intensive outreach and education to the public. So this is one of those places where I thought he could come and speak. So I'm surprised he didn't want to come here and do one of those intensive outreach and educations. So anyways, a year of additional warden outreach with the public. So having a warden come up to you is, so I've been hunting in Vermont since, I don't know, like I showed back in '64 or earlier even, and I've only been checked once by a warden, and that was because I was fishing on the channel on Lake Bomazine under the overpass, and a warden actually checked my license. That was the first time, and that happened a couple of years ago, and that was the first time my whole time out there hunting. And I've hunted from down behind Bromley over to Mad Tom Notch Road, and gotten some deer down there, and never saw more than one the whole time. Plus I've been all the way up north to the Northeast Kingdom moose hunting. Never saw a warden up there, so I don't know how that'll work. So you'll need some form of a license, a registered motorboat. So some form, they should have just told what forms of licenses. I've got a driver's license, and I know I'm being funny here, but that won't work, I guess, even if it is a Vermont driver's license. Shooting ranges will still be done the way they always have been. And they're not required if you're going to be on one of their camps or going to Lake Kehoe or something like that as a conservation camp member. So the commissioner currently has the authority to set fees. Yes, if they're reasonable, they can do that. And it will be put in the Fish and Wildlife Fund. But then how's that going to be used out of the fund? Are they going to target it towards specific WMAs? There's something like 205, I think, is what we showed at the beginning of this slide. Anyways, through all point-of-sale programs, this sells hunting, fishing, and trapping licenses. So that means Walmart, town clerks, anywhere online, you'll be able to get those. Well, that's just another burden on them to sell a different license altogether. I'm not sure how that's going to impact them. So in this slide, the last one they have is questions. So that's where I'm at too, is questions. So here it shows their thing on the declining revenue over the years. And I'm assuming the numbers over on the left are the amount of hunters that are buying licenses, which seems rather high to me. Almost 80,000 people, maybe 75,000 or something like that. But it only shows it up to 2016. I would think that they'd have data from 2016 to 2024 that they could have made this slide and put up here. So it shows residents and non-residents license. They both equally fall about the same. So here's another graph that shows the hunting licenses. And again, this one just goes up to 2014. So I mean, it doesn't even go up to 2024, so it's not giving you an up-to-date view of what's going on. And they started from back in 1950. Well, I'm probably one of the few people that are around from 1950 that actually went hunting in those years. So, and the licenses weren't that much back then. But this was a license demonstration that was put out by the Commissioner of Fish and Wildlife back in 2015. Now this I consider as an excellent slide, because over on the left it shows the amount that the hunters and fishers were charged, and over on the right it shows the number of people that actually bought the licenses. So as you can see, as the price for the license, which is the green line, goes up, the blue line for the amount of people that are using it goes down. So here's the non-resident combination licenses, the same thing. The green line is the hunting prices, the licenses, and the blue line is the number of people that come up here to hunt, and that dropped. Well, I pulled the two charts together to show you what I think is where the state went wrong. This area right here where the arrows are pointing to, where the two lines intersect, that is what is considered a willingness to pay. And at that point, any dollar more that you have to spend, you're going to have a reduction in people buying it. So I'm not sure if they did any studies or have done any studies to find out why that is. I'm just assuming that it was because the price of the licenses went up, but it could have been other things: weather, amount of deer illnesses, economy, all sorts of things. So it'd be good to have some answers like that, but I like this because it shows the actual price of the licenses and how much the people drop. So here are some non-traditional uses. So I'm not sure what they mean by non-traditional uses either. So they say wildlife viewing platforms, hiking trails, moose viewing platforms, Eagle Point trails. So are these just the areas that they're going to be using the money for? Or, and once again, that's just another question that I would hope that he would have answered. Oh, so I also do the cooking show. So my next cooking show, it's Chinese New Year coming up. And for that, I'm going to do no bok choy. I'm going to do some Zachary Pratt Chinese meals. And I have to tell you, the first Chinese meal I had was right here in Rutland, and I believe the name of the restaurant was a Hong Chow, and I probably got that wrong. But chicken chow mein was like one of the best things. I loved it. And the rolls that they served, and the tea and the rice, and oh, it was just a great place to eat. I was probably ate there when I was in the first or second grade for the first time, and I was hooked on it. And when we came to town, that besides the Rutland restaurant was one of the places that I'd go to eat, or my parents would take us to eat out. So anyways, I try to explain some of these things, or would like to explain some of these things, and would like to have talked to the commissioner, Batchelder, but maybe I'll have another chance in the future. I also asked him he could send somebody else if he wanted down to chat about things. So hopefully he will get out, like he says, and you'll see him come and explain some of this stuff to you. So I'm just going to end it by saying I hope you have a happy new year, and you can buy your new hunting and fishing licenses. So I hope you do, and get out there on the ice or out in the woods tramping around, or whatever you want to do for fun. So that will be it for me, and I want to thank all of those here at PEG for their help and assistance in putting this program together. Chelsea, Rich, Jim, and all the staff here. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Have a great start to the new year. Bye.